What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be heading down to get the Cadillac new shoes, and then when we get home we're going to be replacing a lot of the coolant system. Not that it needs to be done, but it's definitely one of those before it fails on the road trip kind of thing. So we got a new radiator. We're eventually going to have the original one rebuilt, but for now we're going to go ahead and just put an all aluminum one in there that I painted black because it was just way too shiny. And new hoses, water pump, thermostat, you know, the works. And right now we still have to run a little bit more flush through it so the block gets nice and clean. As you can see, April Fool's Day, it did snow here, of course, but it wasn't enough for it to stick on the road, and they didn't put any salt on, and the roads have been pretty much rained on for like a whole week. So I'm actually pretty confident that there's no salt left. But first step is get new wheels on this thing, new tires rather, and then someday new wheels, new tires, and we're gonna head down to a locksmith to finish getting the keys made up for this thing so we can open up the trunk finally. I don't know what's in it. I don't know what to expect. Hopefully there's nothing in it. Hopefully it's not all destroyed. So we won't know until we find out. So we're gonna let this thing cool or warm up a little bit. Once it's warm enough that I feel comfortable taking it for the ride, we'll start moving. I just don't want to abuse the engine. You know, she's a beautiful girl, beautiful thing. All right, guys, let's get going. Wait, before we go, just listen to that exhaust note. Love it. All right. Other big thing is I need to get some more gas. It means we have to stop and get some more lead additive because I bought a bunch of it and I have no idea where I put it. You know, par is the course. All right, let's get going. Well, guys, we're at my absolute favorite wheel and tire place down in East Greenbush, Grand Premier. They're really quick. This is not a sponsored plug. I just really like them, and I feel like they deserve a little bit of recognition. They did the wheels for the 72 Columbus Satellite, and they were really quick to get some tires for this old girl. So head over there, you know, get some tires from them. After this, we're gonna go and get some locks made up, or keys made up for the locks on the trunk and the glove box. So let's go ahead, hop in line, and get some fresh shoes. A quick ride from the Grand Premier in East Greenbush, and we find ourselves at JP Morgan Locksmith. Now, they don't normally do car stuff. They're more homeowner, industrial, stuff like that, but they can occasionally help you out. Matter of fact, last year they helped us get the ignition key for this, and this year I had to bring it down so they can actually work on the key in the parking lot. He had it done in 10 minutes. So huge shout out to Tom and the awesome guys over here at JP Morgan's. Not sponsored, just I like to give credit where credit is due, and I'm just blown away. So big shout out to them, and let's go ahead and take a look at the trunk. So we did already pop it open, but we had to figure out what combination we needed. So we now have fuel filler cap, door, ignition, and glove box, trunk. Got to put it in the right way here. And she opens so smoothly, guys. All right, here you go. Realistically, guys, not bad for something that has been sitting inside of a garage with, you know, not heated, nothing like that. We have a little bit of critter living inside of here, but, you know, kind of expected. We do have a rust hole here, which we'll have to repair that, and one starting over here. Other than that, a little bit of just humidity damage to the cardboard inserts for this, and it's really not that bad, guys. Not bad at all. So we'll have to get home, vacuum her out, and get her ready for the road trip, guys. One of the really awesome things to me about this Cadillac is the fact that I pulled it out of the garage slash barn that it was in, and it's incredibly complete. Sure, she has a little bit of rust here and there, and a few things that aren't original, namely the bumper, but we actually have to cover that, and we'll cover that on the road trip because it's actually significant and part of not only the history of this, but art history. This thing has a really cool piece of history to it. This car, yeah, we'll cover that though. And we actually are going to do an interview with Guna before, just wait to hear the history of this thing. I know I keep teasing it, but trust me, it is really cool. But it's very original. It's very complete. Unfortunately, I don't have time to get this radiator rebuilt prior to the road trip, so I did pick up a Champion all aluminum. I painted it black because it was just too shiny. I never thought I'd ever say something was too shiny, but too shiny, can't do it. But that's only going to be temporary. We're going to get this thing restored and ready to be put back in down the road. But time. The other big thing is, as we remembered, we had a bit of a overheating issue in the very beginning, and I have a feeling it had something to do with the thermostat being stuck closed. It did sit for a very long time, and don't want to risk it. Cheap insurance. This right here, unfortunately, even though it has an emergency or a release at 16 psi, I don't think it was working properly that day. So we did go ahead and get a new one. I'm not going to use the stock Champion one. I like these a little bit better for something in this application. And while we have it apart, we're going to go ahead and replace the water pump and the water hoses. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. And one of the things I'm very glad that I decided to do this a few weeks ago and put the order in for all the parts and pieces is yesterday when I took her out to go get the wheels and get the key made up for the trunk, it wasn't a long trip at all. It was probably 15 minutes in between the locations, and had time to cool down and everything. But even though it never overheated, it stayed exactly where it was supposed to be. There's no coolant that I can see in the radiator, so that means she's dropped pretty far down. We've lost a lot of coolant for such a little ride. So I'm very glad we're going to do this before our 5+ hour ride. And it's a pretty straightforward repair. So enough about it. Let's go ahead, jump in it, and the first thing we need to go ahead and do is remove the coolant from the system. I do have radiator flush in it, and we don't want to leave that stuff in there long term. So first, we're going to drain this out through the little valve on the bottom of it. And then we're going to take a shot vac, suck the rest of it out after we pull the thermostat, and probably hook up the hose to it for a little while and flush it out and suck out the remainder of that before we put the actual coolant back in. But like I said, pretty straightforward. Let me go ahead and we'll dig through this, and then we can kind of look at what we have. Like any quick job, you're one broken bolt away from, oh no. And that's no different here. We have an issue. Obviously, it's definitely a good thing we're replacing the water pump, because she, it's not too terrible. Like, definitely meh there, but yeah, she's rotting away. This old aluminum from the 60s and 70s is not really impressive to me. Yeah, junk. Now, leads us to this. We have a broken bolt there, broken bolt there. Fortunately, that one's, we can at least put a nut on there a lot easier. And that one we'll have to put a nut on it. I'll probably drill a tiny bit out of the center of it so we get a little bit better weld to it. And then we have one flush to the timing cover and one probably inside of one of these. I can't remember. I think it broke off in there. I don't think this one's the broken one. So I'll put a little bit of a screwdriver in there and see which one it is. But yeah, every job, right? At this point, we would be putting it back together and we'd be in pretty good shape, but oh, we're breaking out the welder. So the only thing I can think of is at some point someone had this timing cover off. You can see the red RTV not only on the water pump area, but right where the timing cover is. And when they reinstalled it, they didn't install the original bolts or something, because these aren't grade A bolts. Every time I get a weld on them, they break further down inside of the, like that one ended up shearing right off surface. And they just keep taking smaller and smaller bites out of it. So I drilled a little relief inside of it, hoping that would give me more surface area. That drill mark is gone now. Same with there. I'm gonna have to drill these out. Unfortunately, this is pretty rough. So that took a lot longer than I was hoping. To be honest, I still need to throw the bolts in for the water pump, the last bolts, but the biggest issue is trying to get this thing to line up. I'm not 100% convinced that the aftermarket water pump here from the online is 100% correct. There seems to be a bit of a gap where I don't remember there was a gap on the original water pump. Now, other than that, I did end up having to drill and tap the bolts that broke off. That's a perfect example of why you try to keep like at least grade 8 bolts in here. That way they were just so soft. They were incredibly easy to drill through. It's just, yeah, that's why they kept breaking off. I don't know, maybe it's just because they were sitting in here for so long, but yeah. I did use some blue Loctite, sorry, it wasn't Loctite, thread locker. I used some low strength blue thread locker inside there, and yeah, we'll just have to see how well the aftermarket water pump holds. I'm not 100% impressed by it. We'll leave it there. So let's go ahead and put this back together. I don't think there's really much else to do. I was short one of the bolts, so believe it or not, there's a Mopar bolt in here now. It has a little bit of the Chrysler genes inside of it now. Eventually, when we rebuild it, we'll get 100% accurate bolts, but just for, to enjoy it for the time being, let's just keep going with what we're doing. Next, I gotta finish putting the bolts in. It's one of the reasons why I didn't finish bolting that up, is because the oil filter has to come up. The oil filter adapter has to come up through here. That will get bolted in. I'll go through and finish it up, and then I'll start sorting out everything that needs to be done for the carburetor, and it'll be ready to rock and roll again. All right, let me get to work. So I wish I was able to say that this was a pretty quick job. This should have been like 2-3 hours at max. Unfortunately, as you can see, it took a lot longer. But I don't know if this water pump would have lasted us through our road trip, so I'm glad we did it. You know, unfortunately, those 3 bolts, that slowed us down quite a bit. Fortunately, though, we're back together. Another big issue, not a big issue, but the transmission coolant line adapter to the radiator, they're the wrong size from the old radiator to the new radiator, so I have to go get adapters or new connecting ports, which everything's closed now, so we'll have to do that tomorrow. I'm going to have the carburetor on there hopefully Tuesday, and then that will leave just quickly running it to, get the transmission flushed and the new filter in it. So we're really close. Oh, and I need to paint the radiator shroud before I fill up the whole engine with water, or coolant rather. Yeah. Took a lot longer than I was expecting, but hey, it's back together and it's almost ready for the trip, and it's right around the corner. So you guys have yourselves a wonderful day, and I hope you all had a happy Easter. And always keep your shiny side up, and God bless.